Hey, so how are we doing? This morning I have something for you to contemplate, or actually more just something to share with y'all. It's more of an acknowledgement and then maybe a statement. But I get why Christianity is so popular with many Christians, with many people, or maybe just religion in general. In times of, turbulent times and difficult times where there's challenges in one's life, whether it be, maybe a death in your family, or, maybe a terminal illness, or some kind of significant struggle, there's an acknowledgement that we have as mankind, as the human species. We recognize that, we're not fully in control, that there are things beyond our control, there are things beyond our grasp that, like I said, that we don't have control over. So I get the attractiveness of how religion, or more to the point, Christianity, can be helpful to people to sort of, cast your cares on the Lord, that sort of thing. And, and the comfort that comes from praying and believing that, there's a supernatural being that's watching out for you, and that's, it's doing your bidding, so to speak, and taking care of you, just like your parents did when you were a child. You grow up, and now you have, just like your earthly parents, your heavenly parents, your heavenly Father, more just to the point, is there taking care of you and looking out. And so that, it restores some order to what maybe appears to some as to be, well, not really appears, can be a chaotic universe. I mean, there are things, like I said, we don't have control over. So what are you going to do? So I wanted to acknowledge that I realized how attractive that is to people when throughout the course of their life, we're faced with things that don't make sense, that we don't have control over, and so we want to rationalize them, maybe psychologically, to say that, well, God's in control and God's controlling this. Now, I don't know that God isn't, but it would appear that if He is in control of things, He's kind of laying down on the job in some respects, because there are many things that He just seems to be hands off. I am not getting involved, either apathetic or just doesn't care, doesn't want to be, so maybe that's the case. Maybe he does exist, and he just, he picks and chooses when he's going to intervene, when he's going to provide a miracle. For many cases, for many people that really could genuinely need a miracle, like, say young children with childhood cancer or things like that, that would be clearly within His right, and clearly, an act of a loving and compassionate God to do so. But He oftentimes doesn't do that. Occasionally He does a miracle here and there, but it's sort of, or what's attributed as a miracle to Him here and there, but it's at His discretion at His choosing. So, back to the point of what I was really trying to say, though, is that, that's why it's attractive. It's because you have that person, that father figure, that person to go to in prayer and everything. But what if all that's hogwash? What if, this is what I'm trying to propose, well, how does mankind then go about living, maybe a life of integrity, a life of honesty, of recognizing that, I know I don't have control over the chaotic world. I know I don't have control over a lot of the things that happen in my life, that maybe, like I said, terminal illnesses or whatever, just things that we just can't control. We can't control the weather. There's things that we can't control, and there's bad things that are going to happen to us. So, oh my God, what do we do? That's why Christians flock, and other people flock to their religion, because this comfort, this solace, this peace of mind in doing so. And I'm not knocking people for that, because, human beings have to have some place to, so not everybody subscribes. So what about all the people out there that don't go that route, that don't subscribe to religion or Christianity, or want to follow down that road? Where is their peace? Where is their solace? Where is their comfort? Where does that come from? Obviously within. They have to generate that from within, and it's really hard. At least I would think it would be. At least it is from my vantage point, because I'm coming out of that Christianity camp, and that was my go-to to sort of soothe the unsettling episodes that can occur in life. So, that's my question, I guess, is more of a statement and a question, that what does one do then? How does one go about it? How does the skeptic, or how does the anyone go about a life without without God, without attributing things, without casting all your cares onto the Lord, without laying at His feet. That all the stuff that Christianity talks about doing, sort of the things that they're sayings that they have. How do you go about living your life and being devoid of God and still being able to be okay with all that? Now, I'm not suggesting that can't be done. It's just I'm not exactly sure. I mean, one could surmise, I guess. You just say okay, and you just accept that this is what it is. I mean, we all know we're going to die someday. We all know that bad things happen to us, and oftentimes we have no control over those things that happen to us. Sometimes we do, but you have to be, if you're honest with yourself, you recognize that there are things that are beyond our control, and so that doesn't mean we need to ascribe or give them over to some supernatural being that may or may not exist. I mean, I guess you can do that. It's your choice. You can if you want to, but that doesn't seem very. Why not just recognize, okay, there's probably no one upstairs looking out for you, and you just go about living your life. But again, to the question, how do you find peace in doing that? How do you find peace of mind? How does one not be so fearful of death? How does one not? Because that's one thing that helps Christians is they may still be fearful to an extent, but for a lot of Christians, they don't worry about dying, or at least they say they don't, because they know that they don't know. They presume that there's an afterlife and that there's something waiting for them on the other side. Or they can make sense or interpret some of the things, circumstances that they find themselves in their life, and they can say, oh, well, God's going to see us through this, and that sort of thing. So all those things that Christians do and say, what is the atheist? What is the skeptic? Where do they find their comfort and peace? And I guess that's the question for you all that I was hoping maybe somebody will post a comment below this video and share their 2 cents on the topic and what their thoughts are and how people find it. I mean, I guess you just take comfort in yourself to know that I have my time while I'm here, and I'm going to do all I can, and there's no sense in worrying about things that we don't have control over. I mean, there's a lot of pep talk that you could do, I guess, but it's still a little bit scary. I mean, if we all admit we don't know what's on the other side, the great unknown on the other side, there may be absolutely nothing. It's lights out and that's it. It's hard for us to accept that. It's hard for me to accept it. Let's be honest. Maybe it's hard for you to think that we live a good life all these many years or however long we get, and then it's like, okay, that's it, done, and it kind of feels like, wow, that's it. I mean, but yeah, maybe that's the animals in the animal, that's all they get. There's no doggy heaven. I mean, I know I might laugh at me for saying that, but there's no animal kingdom heaven, at least as far as I know. And they just die and their dead carcass is there, and much the same thing happens to us. We're devoid of life, and there it is. We lived our life, and now we're dead, and our corpse lays on the ground. And it's kind of like, well, what happened to the us? Now, many people have these ideas that there may be some other place that you go to, or you may reincarnation. I mean, there's all these other different things that dealt with the afterlife, but we don't know. We don't know. So it's like, back to the living though. When we're living our lives, if one's not going to ascribe to a belief that there's a divine creator, there's some divine God in heaven looking out for us and watching over us and is going to rescue our soul at the end of your life. I mean, then what do we have to help kind of keep us calm and not be anxious for death and anxious for worrying about things that we don't have control over? I mean, it's like I said, I guess maybe just I'm trying to postulate, I'm trying to formulate thoughts as to solutions in my head on the fly here now, making this video, and I'm guessing, like I said before, you just accept what you can't change and accept what you can, and but that's still not as comforting as what Christianity has to offer. I mean, you have to admit that it's, even though it's fantasy, I'm proposing it's fantasy, that it's not real. There really is no person up in heaven looking out for you, and then when you die, that's probably it. That's really attractive to believe that, but what about for the rest of us that don't choose to subscribe to that? I mean, just be like, where's our comfort? I mean, well, the comfort is knowing that you lived a good life, I guess, and that when it's time, and that's it. And accept, the circumstances that happen to you, good or bad. And I mean, a lot easier said than done. And it just seems like Christians have a little bit of an upper hand in that respects, because you can bury your head in the sand and not want to face reality, not want to face the circumstances and face the situation as they may or may not be, and that's fine. You're being disingenuous. You're not being honest with yourself about it, and you can pretend that there's some person out there looking out for you. That's really, I'm not saying that that's a great way to go. I'm just acknowledging that, wow, that's really a nice way in a lot of ways for people to, get. Must be nice to have the luxury of looking at things through that lens in life, because it does provide comfort. And even whether it's real or not, when you're hurting and when you're struggling, you're trying to understand, it's nice to think that there's someone that's going to put it all together when you die and make sense of it all. I mean, or whatever your circumstances is, it's just there to sort of help you through it, and it's like, well, maybe you just need to help yourself. Maybe you just need to recognize that all we have in this life is us, and that maybe sometimes that doesn't seem like it's very much, but to me, living that way, living a life of where realize that you're all you have, is a lot more honest than pretending something you can't see. And faith is the things not seen but heard, or whatever. I can't remember how the saying goes, but rather to believe in all that, maybe just believe in what you can see. Be kind of like, hey, I'm gonna put my faith in that, rather than some unknown enchanted kingdoms or whatever. Now, if that's what someone so chooses to do, okay, more power to them, I guess. But it just, to me, the life of integrity, the life living in reality, is the one that kind of rejects these ideas that they're, that Christianity or other religions propose. So, anyways, that's pretty much the gist of what I had to say. I was just thinking about that, and I was like, wow, how nice it is. What a luxury it is, in a way, to have Christianity, to have religion, to be able to cast your cares on the Lord, and to believe in that, and to not take ownership of your life. And because we recognize that we do have limitations. There is but only so much we can do and impact the world around. Now, we do have a lot of control. I don't mean to convey in this video that we have no control overall, and we're just at the mercy of the universe. I mean, not, but to some extent, we recognize we are. Control what you control and can control, and the things that you can't, you just accept and be like, okay, whatever. So, maybe that's the answer, but that's not as comforting as what Christianity offers, at least in my opinion. Maybe you may disagree, I don't know, but go ahead and leave comments if you would. Tell me what you think about it, and we'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.